The black SUV screeched to a violent stop, its tires screaming against the concrete. Three masked men yanked Victoria Montgomery from the back seat, one of them jamming a cold barrel against her temple. "Transfer 12 million now or she doesn't live long enough to see dawn," the leader snarled. No one noticed the janitor lingering a few feet away. No one ever did, not until his mop slipped from his fingers and clattered across the floor. And in the span of 3 fluid, predatory movements, the abductors were sprawled unconscious on the ground. Victoria stared at this man. Everyone overlooked at this phantom in a faded uniform who moved like a trained hunter. When an invisible guardian rescues a titan of industry, 2 fractured lives discover that genuine strength is born not from dominance, but from allowing oneself to be seen. This is the beginning of their collision. Ethan Riley was a man constructed, almost sculpted to fade into the background. Broad-shouldered, scar-knuckled, eyes heavy with sleepless nights, he wore his janitorial uniform like a cloak of obscurity, the quiet armor of someone who had once commanded chaos and now preferred to be mistaken for no one. At nearly 40, the fine lines at the edges of his eyes spoke of burdens far heavier than the cleaning cart he pushed through Montgomery Tech's polished corridors. Each night, he locked the apartment door twice, scanned the street 3 times before stepping inside, rituals carved into him by a life he never wanted his daughter to inherit. 8 years in Delta Force had left him with ghosts he hid from 7-year-old Safa, his anchor, his only piece of undamaged joy. After losing his wife, Rebecca, to cancer, he abandoned his military career entirely, choosing the anonymity of low-wage work over the spotlight of risk. His world narrowed to one mission: keep Sophie safe, even if it required the world to forget he existed. Victoria Montgomery existed at the opposite end of the spectrum. At 35, she wielded Montgomery Tech innovations with clinical precision. Copper hair always arranged to perfection, immaculate suits designed as armor for boardrooms and battlefields alike. She kept the world as measured distance, calculating, controlled, untouchable. Orphaned at 12, she had carved her empire through relentless will, sleepless discipline, and brilliance sharpened by loneliness. Behind closed doors, she endured 18-hour workdays, returning each night to a penthouse so pristine it felt more like a museum than a home. To the business world, she was the ice queen of Silicon Valley, an architect of cyber fortresses who trusted no one and needed nothing. But when the city lights flickered beneath her windows, she felt only the cold, hollow echo of a life defined by achievement, not affection. The kidnapping attempt was just another entry in her long ledger of threats, yet another reminder that trust equaled vulnerability and vulnerability equaled defeat. Late one evening, she immersed herself in acquisition reports when her security chief, Marcus, entered. "We've received another threat, Miss Montgomery." More detailed than the last. She dismissed him with a flick of her hand. "Enhance security if you must, but I'm not canceling the Singapore negotiation." Night swallowed the building until she was the last soul remaining, working through untouched dinners and endless figures. When she finally checked the time, it was nearly midnight. Time to return to a penthouse filled with silence. In the echoing executive garage, only her driver waited by the sleek black sedan. Her heels clicked sharply as she approached, mind already racing ahead to morning meetings. The lights overhead flickered, but she ignored the warning as mere maintenance. "Evening, Miss Montgomery," her driver greeted, holding the door open. As she stepped inside, a strange scent pricked her sense as a wrong, foreign. Before she could react, a cloth smothered her mouth and nose. She fought nails clawing at leather seats, but darkness swallowed her whole. Consciousness returned in disordered fragments. She was still in the garage, only now surrounded by 3 masked men. Her driver stood pale and trembling, phone pressed to his ear. "You have 10 hours to deliver 12 million, the leader informed him, "or your CEO dies before the night ends." Victoria's mind sharpened instantly, her thoughts slicing through fear with ruthless clarity. 3 men, armed, disciplined, not amateurs, professionals who had studied her schedule, bypassed her security, and neutralized her driver with disturbing ease. Nearby, Ethan paused mid-mop. He recognized everything of the formation, the stance, the way they covered angles, military precision, possibly private contractors. His instinct stood up, calculations firing across distances and trajectories. Years of covert operations woke inside him like a beast stretching awake. Sophie's face flashed in his mind. He had promised pancakes in the morning. Intervening meant exposure. Questions. Attention to the exact thing he'd spent years burying. Captain Ethan Riley was supposed to be dead, folded beneath the shadow of a janitor's badge. Sophie needed an ordinary father, not one who invited danger like a magnet. Yet something in Victoria's steady expression despite the weapon pressed against her skillless struck a note he couldn't ignore, a familiar steel he had only ever seen in soldiers who refused to break. The leader pressed the gun harder, growing impatient. Age Kahisabedjadin, main Uzabi style mine rewrite card unga. The gun dug harder into Victoria's temple, the leader's patience thinning. Maybe we need to demonstrate how serious we are, he growled. That was the moment Ethan made his choice. His fingers danced over the maintenance panel, plunging the garage into a heartbeat of darkness. And in that breath, he became someone else entirely, someone he had tried for years to bury. A precise sweeping kick, a crashing elbow strike, a wrist lock that snapped tendons to the edge of rupture. The first kidnapper dropped without a sound, swallowed by confusion and shadow. The second barely had time to reach for his weapon before Ethan wrenched his arm behind him, immobilizing him with surgical brutality. The third, clearly the lead, responded to fire, but Ethan was already at his shoulder, disarming him with a maneuver known only to the world's most elite operators. Victoria stood frozen, stunned into silence. The man she had walked past hundreds of times, the invisible janitor, had just dismantled three armed assailants with an efficiency that bordered on artistry. When the emergency lights flickered back to life, they illuminated a different Ethan Riley. Not the quiet, forgettable man pushing a mopa, but a warrior scanning the environment, analyzing corners, checking exits, ensuring the threat was fully neutralized. His eyes were sharp now, honed, transformed. By the time building security arrived, scrambling, breathless, alerted by the driver's frantic panic button, they discovered three restrained kidnappers, a broken bar, a trembling shot, a broken bar, and a janitor calmly retrieving his discarded mop as if nothing remarkable had taken place. "Who are you?" Victoria breathed, studying his face as though seeing a stranger for the first time. "Just the janitor, ma'am," Ethan murmured, gaze dropping back into the safety of anonymity. Regret flickered across his expression, a regret for stepping out of the shadows he had lived in so carefully.